I'm thrilled to welcome Keith Keating. Keith is the Chief Learning and Talent Officer and Senior Vice President for Archwell, as well as a well-known workforce futurist. Dr. Keating is also author of a brand new book, The Trusted Learning Advisor. So I hope you'll help me welcome Dr. Keating to the stage.
You looked for jobs in the newspaper when I started. So I found a job in the newspaper, and it was for a Microsoft Office trainer. And I thought, oh, how hard is this going to be? You know, I know Microsoft Office, and anybody can be a trainer, which is the same mindset a lot of our business practice or our stakeholders have. So I go to the interview, and it was awful. I couldn't deliver a test teach. I didn't even know what that was, and she explained it to me, and so I ended up coughing through the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm really sick, but I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh.
So they ended the test teach. I leave thinking I'm not gonna get the job, and they call me about a week later, and they offered me the job. And so I'm 17 years old. My job is to travel around the country teaching Social Security Administration offices how to use Microsoft Office 2000. I walk into my first classroom, and it's my parents. They're between 40 to 60, and I'm their child, 17, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Oh.
And it was truly the worst class that ever existed. And I have felt guilty about it, which is why I still talk about it. But I went back that night, and I studied really, really hard, and I practiced in front of the mirror, and I got 0.0000001% better the next day. And I went back and I did the exact same thing. And I repeated this every day until about 6 months in, I finally saw that glimmer in someone's eye that they got it. They got what I was teaching. And it was the first time that I had ever felt like I had value or I had something that I could contribute to the conversation. My philosophy is not trying to chase my passion, but trying to find the passion in what I do. And luckily, what we do is extremely valuable. You know, I've learned that we have the power to change lives with learning and development. And once you learn how to learn, you are unstoppable. The book is an accumulation of my 25 years experience, the stories from me, from you all that I've learned along the way, and it's a guide to evolving from being an order taker to being a trusted learning advisor. There's a lot of times that we think, if I just had a seat at the table. If I just had a seat at the table, I could actually make some impact, and I could drive change. But I want you to think a little bit differently, and this is what I talk about in the book, is we need to stop trying to get a seat at somebody else's table, and we need to build our own table as learning and development, and we need to invite others to sit with us so that they can see what it is that we're able to do. So I'll give you an example. All of us are talking about, or should be talking about, skills. Upskilling, reskilling, second skilling, AI skilling, technology skilling, whatever it is. There's other people in the organization that may be talking about it as well, but why can't we take control over that narrative and that conversation? And so you could consider creating a skills advisory committee or a skills advisory board, whatever vocabulary works for your organization, because that's an important distinction. You've got to think about your culture. But it is a reoccurring meeting that you are leading. And you're inviting maybe your C-suite, maybe your stakeholders, maybe some frontline workers to be a part of that conversation. You're inviting your external partners. We've got a great network here at CLO, so invite some other leaders from there. I sometimes invite competitors from other organizations to the table, and every 6 months we have a facilitated conversation. I drive the conversation, I orchestrate it, I curate it, but it's not my voice. It's not just me sitting there saying, hey, this is what we need to do. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm bringing to the table research, World Economic Forum, Burson, McKinsey, Deloitte, all of that is free. They break it down. McKinsey is probably my favorite, World Economic Forum would be second, but they break down every organization, every role, every skill, and what it's gonna look like for the next 3 to 5 years. Bring that data with you in these conversations. If you're not already conducting qualitative research with your learners, or said another way, empathy research, or just having conversations, capture all of that data. That data and the voice of your learners and talent is so much stronger and more valuable than ours. Because I'm sure you can relate to this, but every time I say something to my stakeholder, they say, you don't know my business. You're not part of my business. Okay, well, let me bring in the voice of your business. Let me bring in the voice of your people. And so I bring the external research. I do the qualitative research internally. I distill down, synthesize some problem statements that I've learned from that research of what's out there in the industry, And we have facilitated discussions. And it starts to change the way that our stakeholders see us, because now they see me as a partner, as a strategic business partner that understands their business because I'm using their vocabulary and their language. Our job is really to make our stakeholders the hero of their own story. It's not to make ourselves look good. And everyone thinks that they can do our job, and everyone thinks that they can be a trainer, or they can teach, or they can create content. And part of that is, historically, we started as order takers. So in the 1800s, if you look back in the Industrial Revolution, employees needed to be trained. So the manager would say, okay, go train them to move this widget here. And so we would go and we'd say, okay, move this widget here. And that mindset has continued throughout. And part of it is our fault, because we continue to act like order takers. I was a military brat. Like I said, my father was in the Army, and so I grew up as an order taker. So when I joined the industry, order taking was my natural mindset. Sure. And it wasn't until about 10 years in that I realized I have a point of view. I have experience, I have value, and by the way, what you're telling me to do is not right. What do you mean you want a 30-minute ILT to change some sort of culture behavior? That's not gonna work. But our stakeholders aren't really open to that idea. And a lot of that is because we don't have the skill sets to have those conversations, to have the consultative dialogue. We don't have the skill set necessarily to be able to push back gently, or to know when to push back. That's one of the things I hear a lot of people say, yeah, we got to push back and tell them, no, that's not the right way. But there's so many things you have to consider, like, how long have you had that relationship? Is this brand new? Because if it's brand new, you don't want to go in guns blazing, telling them how wrong they are. You've got to build up credibility. You've got to ask yourself, is there a fire? If somebody's house was on fire, you're not going to stand back and say, oh, well, let's see why that happened. Let's do a needs analysis. Maybe they left the stove on. Maybe it was arson. Oh, it was poor electricity. No, you're going to get together. You're going to get hoses. You're going to get buckets, whatever, and you're going to put the fire out. Once everything is stable, then you're going to step back and then analyze the situation. And so that's what we have to do as well. Is it a fire? Is there an urgent need where someone needs us to do something, and then we can figure out later on how to change their mindset? We also have to keep in mind that a lot of times our stakeholders are also order takers. Someone else told someone else who told someone else who's then telling us what to do. So we're saying to them, hey, we need a needs analysis. We need this budget. We need to go back and do this. And they're like, yeah, sorry, no, just get it done. So we've got to be able to build up our credibility, and part of our credibility is about our expertise. And so we have to truly step back and ask ourselves, do we have the skill set and capability to warrant the respect that we want and that we're demanding? When technology arises, we lose jobs, jobs change, and also it creates new jobs. And the new jobs are great, but that's not going to happen for a while. What is going to happen is this: we're going to lose a lot of jobs. I can tell you today that in several of the companies I consult with, we are going to lay off 30% of the company in the next 2 years. I know that now. Now, no one else is talking about it in the company. I know it because of my seat at my table where I invite the CEO and I have those conversations. All of your companies, all of your leaders are asking the exact same questions. How can I reduce my headcount because they're the most expensive? How can I increase my effectiveness, my efficiency, and increase my revenue? We are the only ones that have the potential power to help the talent that is at risk, because somebody in your organization is at risk. So we've got to be looking at that and driving those conversations today to start to plan. I'm looking out 16 months right now, and I'm starting to create programs because I know the 30%, the 20 to 30% that's already at risk. And they're the easy ones. They're the frontline workers. They're the back office analysts. That can be done with AI, and they know it. I'm not sure that they're going to have a role in our organization, so I'm having those conversations to help them build up that skill set today. So at the end of the day, it is our responsibility, our authority, our calling to make sure that we are protecting the people in the organization, our talent, because no one else is going to do that. We either evolve or else. The choice is ours. I already know today that I need less L&D people on my team as a result of ChatGPT. I know it right now. All of you are probably aware of this as well, and if you're not, you should be, because ChatGPT is a great tool, and it's going to really help make us be more efficient and more effective, save time and save money. So we've got to be demonstrating our value to our organizations. We've got to be identifying how to use these types of tools and proactively bringing it to our organization rather than somebody else figuring it out. So the answer to your question is we need to evolve from being order takers to being trusted learning advisors. My answer to your question is I love to bring external data to the conversation of what are other people doing. So find out who your business partner is curious about, maybe who a competitor is in another organization, which is why we all need to be sharing our stories. Also, again, I go back to World Economic Forum, McKinsey Global Institute. Power yourself with a voice outside of your own, and then use that, because people can't argue. They can argue with me. They can say, Keith, you're biased, you don't know my business, you don't know whatever. Okay, fine, don't listen to my voice. How about this data? How about this research? So I go back to the qualitative research on your team. Get voices of the individuals who want to learn. Identify the roles that are at risk from your perspective, even if no one's talking about them. You probably have an idea. And start thinking about, if no one's talking about it, figure it out for yourself. What are a couple of the roles that you think ChatGPT could probably replace in your organization? Start having the conversation proactively with your business. Don't wait for them to identify this, because they may not even be thinking about it. You're not bringing it to them saying this is going to happen. What you're saying is, hey, I've been thinking about this, and AI is a fantastic tool. It helps us be more innovative. It helps us do this, this, and this. And here's some roles that could be at risk. So here are some ways that we could think about changing the skills or changing that talent to focus on other areas. I also looking at their strategies and thinking about identifying and understand what are their next 6-month, 12-month strategies to look at. I also look retrospectively. So sometimes with my business partners, I'll identify, even before I got there, of things that they were trying to do, and maybe figure out now what we could have done differently and bring that to the conversation. So arm yourself with data externally, internally, and then bring them to the conversation as well. It's not just us presenting to them, but it's having a facilitated dialogue where our job is really to curate the conversation, but to give them the opportunity to have input. Because a lot of times we come up with these ideas and we go and present it to them, and again, they're like, I don't care, this isn't my area, I've told you what to do, I've got to focus on the fire that's at my feet, not what you're talking about. So we can start to slowly plant those seeds with them to try and change that narrative. But it is not a quick win. There is no easy fix for this. As I mentioned at GM, automotive manufacturer, it took us 4.5 years to start to make that transition. I've been in my current role for 2 years. I'm still treated as an order taker. We're still fighting every day to have them see us differently and recognize the value that we bring. So just be patient with yourself and recognize that it does take time. My worry is that we're not thinking about the talent in our organizations right now, and the fact that our workforce is transforming every single day. AI is changing. I mean, it's mind-blowing how fast it changes. I've tried to keep up. I can't keep up. I don't think, in November last year, there was 30 companies. Now there's, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 companies that are doing this. It's just evolving so quickly. And I feel like in some ways we're kind of standing by like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, look at it evolve.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna hit us. And it's not hitting us necessarily yet where it's in the news, but people are losing their jobs now. Fiverr, Upwork, the gig workers, personally for me, I had a marketing person, I had a copywriter, I had an editor, they're all gone. I don't need them anymore. I get to save a lot of money because for $20 a month, ChatGPT does all of this for me. So for me personally, I'm seeing the transition from the gig workers being impacted and the people saying, hey, I'm now having to drive an Uber. I'm a marketing expert. I'm a copywriting expert. I can't get a job now. It's going to happen to our workforce. There is no organization that's safe from this. So I'm not trying to instill fear. I'm trying to empower us because it is an opportunity. It is the opportunity for us to get in front of this and figure out which roles are potentially at risk, and it may not be the entire role, it may be a portion of the role, but even if you have 100 people in that role and only part of their work is now going to be augmented, well, you still don't need 100 people. Maybe now you only need 50 people. So what do you do with those other 50 people? So you start looking across the organization and figuring out what transferable skills do they have that might be able to move into another role. And I'm not going to BS and say that we're going to be able to find everybody jobs, because we're not. I know right now, again, about 1,000 people that are not going to have a job. So I'm not going to tell them immediately, like, hey, sorry, in 2 years you're not going to have a job. But what I can do right now is start building programs to build skills so that when they don't have their job, they can land a job someplace else. And that's what we really need to be focusing on. I know that we tend to focus on ourselves or launching an L&D program, but we've got to be looking 2-3 years out and holistically across the organization, because no one else is going to care for our people except for us.